On a U.S. chartered flight, 49 white South Africans arrived just outside of Washington today on a U.S. chartered flight, granted citizenship status by the Trump administration. A surprise move because President Trump himself signed an executive order on day one of his presidency, suspending the refugee admissions program, quote, until such a time as the further entry into the United States of refugees aligns with the interests of the United States.
American flags in hand, South African families are shuffled in front of cameras as they take some of their first steps on U.S. soil.
I want you all to know that you are really welcome here.
With cameras rolling, Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau addresses the group of white South Africans who the administration is proposing to classify as refugees. But in his first week in office, President Trump shut America's door to refugees from all around the world, including victims of genocide and war. Now, the president is making an exception for one group of people.
The president...
It was never about getting rid of illegal immigrants. It was never about getting rid of criminal. It was about upholding the white majority in the country. It's about filling the country with as many white people as possible. It's a bunch of fragile American racists who are scared that their skin color is no longer going to be the majority in the country. We are a disgrace of a nation. We're infiltrating Mexican restaurants. We're sending Mexican American citizens with no criminal record to El Salvador with zero due process. But they're rolling out the red carpet for white South Africans. That's where we're at right now. This was never...
I'm just really upset about something and I want to delve into it real quick. Again, I know this isn't sports.
Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone and Ruwell. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. News in this gospel bride, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the spirit. As everybody knows, those South African refugees are basically being flown, well, they're actually here in America. When the crazy part about it is that allegedly Donald Trump is supposed to be doing away or suspending the Immigration Act, which allowed people to come over here to seek asylum. In fact, he's sending Venezuelans and so-called Mexicans and predominants of the Northern Kingdom, and even allegedly grabbing up some citizens that's here in Babylon and sending them back to their so-called country. But yet he allowed these white refugees to come in from South Africa, which South Africa was pretty much colonized by apartheid going back into 1948, which make sense, right? You got who we call the 1948ers, which was put in the land of Israel by what they call the Balfour Declaration, which is through political means and giving them rights and basically confiscating lands that don't belong to them. Now Trump is giving them asylum here in America because those Hamites are kicking their ass out of the land, basically telling them that they can't vote, don't have rights to certain services and all this other shit. But what I find ironic about that is that that's what you've been doing to the people of America, the Israelites. Okay, this is what they've been doing to the Black, Hispanic, and Native American population going on the last 500 fucking years. So all of a sudden now, when the shoe was on the other foot, now all of a sudden they're the epitome of hate crimes, right? Everybody's racist and judging the so-called white man because of the color of his skin. But don't you remember how you've gotten this country and how you've gotten the world pretty much by the sword? And you make all these excuses and talking about, well, yeah, they hate us, we're discriminated against. But wait a minute, Esau, that's your whole MO, discrimination. Okay, you illegally lock people up against their will. You take lands, you cover them. Okay, you displace people. Okay, you limit out certain resources to certain demographics, and then you push poison in the food systems, which poisons the people or targets the people of color. Well, all of a sudden, you want to be a goddamn hypocrite because you Edomites are a bunch of hypocrites, man. Okay, you like to throw a rock at a glass house, Here you are, literally guilty of every possible crime under the heavens, but yet, when it's done into you, now all of a sudden you want to cry wolf. Like you can literally go and drop a bomb on somebody, but the minute they retaliate against you, then you want to call them terrorists. You know, same thing with Gaddafi. When Gaddafi didn't want to adhere to the United States dollar and he didn't want to play ball with the CIA, all of a sudden Gaddafi was basically just named a fucking war criminal, right? And then what happened? You ultimately had him put to death, all because he didn't want to play ball with you. But yet, the minute they retaliated against the United States, and all of a sudden now we have to declare war on terror. You know, that's why these people, they have to go, okay? And there's no sympathy or any sympathetic dealings for the so-called white race, because through the spirit, man, Esau's just, it ain't just the spirit, Esau's the fucking devil. You know, everything that you've done is coming back to bite you. And that's why the Most High say, would you render me a recompense? If so, surely and swiftly would I recompense your own head, man. And right now you're seeing a payback, a starting of a payback. Because like I said, you've gotten South Africa through apartheid, and you can look up apartheid. I'm not going to look it up because I'm driving right now and I got to focus on the road. But look up what apartheid is and ask, and you can do it through what do you call that, AI shit. You know, look it up and ask Siri or whoever the hell AI, how was South Africa involved in apartheid, and they would tell you going back to 1948 when there was a so-called free grab of the land, but in fact they raped, robbed, and murdered just like they do everything else. Set up wicked judicial systems and oppress the people of that indigenous land and call it out to themselves, man. That's what this devil doing. This is what he's been doing since his inception. Okay, this is how he got the Middle East or the land of Israel. This is how he got America. Okay, this is how he got parts of Europe. The same thing through the sword. Okay, so anyway, let's play a couple of minutes of this video, then I'll get a couple of pre-sales, because this is the ultimate form of hypocrisy, and you people should be mad as hell, man. Okay, because for the simple fact, they kicked you out of your land, the Native Americans, the so-called Mexicans or Hispanics, which they have native to this land, because Mexicans are Native Americans as well, because they're native to this land. But you kicked them out, call them illegal aliens, put them in captivity, but yet you're bringing a bunch of blonde-hair, blue-eyed Edomite crackers to set up in their stead, when you specifically said that we're not letting anybody in the fucking country. This is basically a manufactured race war, man. This is nothing more but a staged race war, because what Esau was doing, he's trying to create a civil unrest. Okay, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get you tribes roused up. But the problem is, you know, you too docile. Okay, you too busy worried about they're cutting your Section 8 and WIC programs and soon to be your jobs, to the point you're not even realizing that they're manufacturing a race war right before your face, man. All right, so anyway, without delay, here we go.
I know some of you come here for sports, I respect that, but white South Africans landed at Dulles International Airport as refugees, and they were welcomed into the United States under a humanitarian designation meant for those men and women fleeing war or persecution. And Trump has suspended this for all other groups everywhere in the world. And almost all of those other groups, or a huge majority, are people of color. And Donald Trump has allowed these 50 white South Africans into the United States because he says that there's a genocide in South Africa. And
well, there's not a genocide. They're just taking back what's rightfully theirs, okay? You started the genocide. You started the apartheid, okay, of uprooting indigenous people from their lands, man. And the fact that they're trying to piss you people off about it is because they publicize it. I think he mentioned, what, 50 people? I mean, they could have kept that on the low. But see, they want you people to buck up and act crazy, man, because, you know, like we told you, Trump, he don't care about you niggas, man. Okay, he's showing his horns, and on top of that, he's talking about finding a way on suspending habeas corpus to get the rest of you out of here, and also putting American citizens in Guantanamo Bay and El Salvadorian prisons and locking you away for good for so-called crimes that you're committing, man. But yet his people, which is full of bloodshed and rape and massacre, can come here and live like citizens and be taken care of, man. And that don't rouse you people up. We don't know what will.
And that is just actually not true. Trump said, farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black, it makes no difference to me. And at the same time, you're watching people all over this country being round up. People almost exclusively who are of color being rounded up by ICE, taken into facilities, exported. But white people are being brought in from South Africa under the false pretense of they're facing this life or death discrimination.
So South Africa's own government is even coming out today and telling Trump, if you want to take on these refugees, that's on you. But just so you know, none of them have been properly vetted. A lot of them have been involved in protests that are pro-apartheid. And on top of that, these guys are actually claiming that they're being persecuted for being white. I don't know if you know a whole lot about South Africa, where Elon Musk is from.
Persecuted for being white. Get the fuck out of here. You're being persecuted because everybody knows your MO. Everybody knows when you show up on their borders, it's wartime. Okay, everybody knows when you show up on their borders, here comes wickedness. Here comes fucking homosexuality. Here comes whoredom. Okay, it comes fucking allopathic medicines, man. Not holistic, but here comes chemical-based medicines and chemtrails and, you know, chemicals in the food and all this other shit. Here comes democracy. Here comes the Starbucks. You know, here we were catching our animals and actually had real buffalo, but yet you set up a fucking McDonald's and now you selling must-ready beef. This is why people are getting rid of you, man. They're tired of you, man. All right, the world is tired of you. The Most High is tired of you. You know. So anyway, let's go here. It's the book of Micah 2, and I'm gonna start at verses 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds." Right, and that's talking about you Edomites, man, because you have the power to do these things. Okay, the power is in your hand to carry out these mass sentences of death, man. You know, and it says here, when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Right. Who got the court systems? Who got the judicial systems? Who set up the police task force? You know, and yet you try to come here and you try to play this victim card when in fact you're no victim. Okay, the amount of bloodshed that you've created in the world, you could never call yourself a victim. I don't give a fuck how innocent you are. Well, I ain't had nothing to do with that. Yes, you did. Indirectly, directly, you are your fathers, man. You know, going back into the Spanish Inquisition. What about, it's a book called, damn, I got the book at the crib, but it's called, not Murder in the West Indies, but it's called something in West Indies by Bartholomew. I think his name is Bartholomew. His name slips my memory. You know, my memory ain't really been doing that good the last couple of weeks, man. Just a lot of shit Jake trying to crunch into. But basically, he write a book going into the genocidal or the genocidal murders that you Edomites have put on the indigenous people of this land. Okay, what about when Columbus came to the shores of America? Well, not up here, but what about when Columbus came to the Americas? Okay, they said that he couldn't put his fucking sword down. You know, he couldn't. It's like his sword cleaned into his wrist. You know, and not only that. What about what else, man? What about the Trail of Tears? What about the transatlantic slave trade? Okay, what about the taking down of the Persians and the Medes? You know, just to name a few. Just through bloodshed, man. That's your freaking history. And it says, and they covet fields. When you covet something, ultimately you're taking something by force. You covet fields and you take them by violence. This is talking about you, E. Okay, you've taken it by violence. By what? By the sword. Okay, that was your blessing. Now all of a sudden you're being discriminated against because of the color of your skin. But yeah, you judge everybody because of your outright hatred. Because of the color of their skin. Even though between Jacob and Esau it's more of a spiritual kick. But the average idiot out there think the so-called white man hate Jake because of the color of his skin, when it's a little bit deeper than that. You know, this is a spiritual battle that we've been engaging with them since the beginning of time. But on the outside appearance, they hate you because of who you are. You know? And they put that motherfucker up quick. And it says here, so they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. How the hell do you oppress a man in his heritage, man? You know? How do you oppress a man in his house? By giving the women rights, by taking away the children, by making the man less than a first-class citizen. These are all things you did by the sword, man. Prime example. Title 4D, child support. That's fucking wickedness, man. And then he have a deadbeat dad program when he puts the face of men that don't pay child support, and he demonizes these men all because he can't extort them for money. When we know the fact that this Title 4D shit, that don't benefit the kid. But instead it goes in the pocket of these legislators, these senators, these judges, these lawyers, these cops. You know, that's basically their pensions and that's their bonus money, which is a whole nother salary on top of what they're getting to exploit. Because they can't exploit you, they demonize you, man. You know? But it says they covet fields and take them by violence through war and houses, and they take them away, so they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. How the hell do you oppress a man in his heritage, man? Like, how wicked can you be? And then you want to cry wolf. Oh my God, we're getting judged. No, you're getting kicked out of the land because of the shit you've done. Okay? And the world understands that you're the devil. You know? Let's go here.
The apartheid just ended not very long ago. If you don't know what that is, it was mass segregation. South Africa's government also came out and added that it's really hard to be a refugee of persecution when you're amongst the most highest earners and highly educated in the entire region.
Send in private planes to pick up 8,000 Caucasian South African refugees when we're kicking people out that are in the middle of their immigration proceedings here in the U.S. now. Literally having people show up for their final steps of their immigration process and having them arrested, detained, and deported. It doesn't make any sense to me unless...
Oh, it says 8,000. I don't know where they got 50 from. So I guess they're writing in a particular increments of a particular number. I don't know. You know. But look at this guy. This guy's Donald Trump. Yeah, he's trying to start a race war, man. And he's going to get it because it's to the point Jake getting tired, man. You know, talking about the 2/3. They're going to be, eventually they're going to roll on Esau. I mean, you know, Esau going to always kick it. You know, Esau's going to kick it off. But regardless of it, Jake is going to respond to it. Because they're backing these niggas up into a corner and taking their substance. Jake gonna respond to this adversity sooner than later. Okay, we're living in those times.
Farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference.
And you ain't white, motherfucker. You're red, nigga. Okay, you're not white, nigga. Matter of fact, you're burnt orange. Okay, you're not the color of that shirt. In fact, you're more of this color here. New York Post. You're closer to that. Look at this man's face and look at his shirt and tell me, do this nigga match his shirt? Okay, because white goes into purity. Ain't nothing pure about you fucking Edomites at all.
Difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
And it's not their land, okay? The land don't belong to them, all right? You go back into the Caucasus Mountains of Jordan, Russia, man. Okay, you go back to Petra. Okay, that's Mount Seir. That's your home. Okay, Europe is not your home. Europeans belong to people of color, the Japhetic peoples, man. And Euro-Asia, which is Eastern descent, you know, Israelites, we're considered Eastern people, man. Okay, when you go into Asia, it just means, or Asian or Oriental just means East. But it says apartheid was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination enforced by the white minority government in South Africa from 1948 to 1994. Hence, Elon Musk, you know, his family, all of them are part of this genocidal act. Okay, and coincidentally, this nigga's he's worth $400-something billion. But yet the people of South Africa, even though you got Moabites down there, the people of South Africa, they're pretty rich in resources. But as far as on a national scale, these people, man, they're living fucking dirt poor compared to you Edomites. It says, white minority government in South Africa from 1948 to 1994. It involved strict racial classifications, enforced segregation in public and private spaces, and restrictions on the movement, education, and political rights of non-white South Africans, man. Okay, meaning that they put hell on people of that land. All right, it says, here's a more detailed look. The Population Registration Act of 1950 classified all South Africans into racial groups: white, black, colored, Indian. Okay, going back into Blumenbach, which, you know, even though this goes back, Blumenbach goes back beyond then, but Blumenbach classified 3 classifications of people: the Mongoloid, the Caucasoid, and the Negroid. Okay, which the Caucasoid goes into the Edomite, the Negroid, the so-called black people. This is how they lumped the Southern Africans. And then you had the Mongoloid, which represents the Eastern people. You know, but it says which determine their rights and opportunities. So a group of devils basically had the 1% had rights over a particular demographic, calling the shots just like they do today. You know, ain't nowhere in fucking hell that 1% of the people call the shots of 99% of the people on the planet Earth. Okay, 1% owns more wealth than the 99% combined. Now make that make sense. But yet you're the victim. It says apartheid laws enforce segregation in housing, education, employment, public transportation, and recreational facilities. Past laws required black South Africans to carry passbooks and restricted their movement, often limiting their ability to find work or live in urban areas. And eventually they just rose up against you, man. Okay. It says here, the Bantu education, which the Bantu people were Israelites. Simeon Toko was I think a Bantu man. But it says act established a separate inferior education system for black students, and a lot of them were Jakes too. It says non-white South Africans were denied the right to vote and participate in political process. Apartheid created vast disparities in wealth, and you did it apartheid of America too. This is why the so-called people of color are disproportionately affected, man. And it says living conditions and opportunities for black South Africans compared to whites. Social and political unrest. It says the system led to protests, boycotts, and violent clashes between the government and anti-apartheid movements, man. All right. This is the reason why people are putting hands on your ass now. Damn devil, man. I can't, man. You people got to freaking pay. Zechariah 11:5, it says, whose possessors slay them to hold themselves not guilty. And it says, and they that seldom say, blessed is the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Yeah, it says here, it says, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. Because you heard what Trump just said. He said, oh, they're being the target of racial discrimination in a roundabout way, which what he said, he's basically saying they're being targeted for their skin color. But yet you literally destroy people based on the skin color and because of your hatred. Hypocrisy, man. And it says here, and they that seldom say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. So anyway, let's go back to the video.
Africa, and the newspapers and the media, television media doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that.
I really don't think a lot of people are understanding right now with what's going on. They are doing exit inspections. U.S. citizens are leaving by the thousands at airports right now, but it's not getting coverage.
Wave 1 is ICE. Wave 2 is the police. Wave 3 is the National Guard. Wave 4 is the entire U.S. military-industrial complex. Do with this what you will.
Alarm bells continue to go off as the Trump administration is actively considering suspending the writ of habeas corpus in America. Now, here's what this means. The writ of habeas corpus essentially protects individuals from unlawful detention in America. It allows them to challenge unlawful detention in the federal courts. If the writ of habeas corpus is suspended, it's only happened 4 times in American history, then individuals could be detained without having any due process.
So they're saying Donald Trump's considering suspending.
Yeah, and all this is coming at the perfect time because, you know, this could be a fucking psyop, man. All right, they could be literally trying to start civil unrest. And with that said, you spark civil unrest and you get hit with the Insurrection Act, or you get hit under the Insurrection Act where you are labeled an insurrectionist. They can bump them charges up to domestic terrorism, man, you know, and then they can hold you indefinitely. So all this is coming on a ham of it's all happening. It is all making itself manifest, man. We're in them times. All right. This is the book of Revelation 6:3. It says, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given. It says, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And who was that talking about? Okay, that's talking about Esau. Because going back into Genesis, Isaac's blessing to Esau was the sword and the fatness of the earth. And this is how he's basically got the world in the grip of his hand through rape, rob, and murder. And it says that they should kill one another, and that was given to him a great sword. It says a great sword, man. You know. Let's go to here, the book of Habakkuk, because it goes to shameful spewing on thy glory, because everybody knows that your history is through bloodshed and slavery, oppression. That's the only thing you devils are known for, and this is why you try to hide under everybody else. This is nationality, because you don't want to be known as being that man of blood, man. A bloody man. That's what you are. All right. This is the book of Habakkuk 2. And I'm going to start at 5. It says, yea, because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keep it at home. Yeah, the fuck you doing in South Africa, bro? The hell you doing in America? The hell you doing in parts of Europe? The hell you doing in Asia? The hell you doing in Canada? What are you doing in Central America? Okay, what are you doing in Africa? What are you doing there? What are you doing in the UK? And it says, he transgressed by wine. He is a proud man, neither keep it at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathering unto him all nations, and heaping unto him all people. He did that by the bloodshed through the sword. It says, should not these take up a parable against him, and a taunty proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? And how long to him that laden himself with thick clay? And this is why everybody's rising up against you. All right. Between you and Amalek, the whole world despises you completely, because you're the same nation. Okay. The typical German Edomite, the British Edomite, the French Edomite, South African Edomite, the American Edomite, and the Jewish Edomite. You're all the nation of Edom. Okay. Just different tribes. Just like we got 12 tribes in Israel, you have several tribes in Edom too, man. Okay. And it says here, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them, which booty is spoiled. It says, for thou, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, and because of men's blood, because you shed blood, for the violence of the land of the city, and all that dwell therein. All right. So now your blood is getting ready to be shed. And this is why Trump is trying to play the victim card. And this is all them devils, man. They'll literally get you roped up, and then they'll put you on a trial. But what you did, no, it ain't what I did. It's what you did. You know, like when you challenging their jurisdiction, then all of a sudden, you challenge them and you catch them up, then they find a way on how to make you guilty. No, you're guilty, man. All right. In the scriptures, and the Lord is making an inquisition out of your ass. But it says, woe to him that coveted evil covenants to his house. And that's what you did, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. It says, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. Yeah, look at what you did to Gad and Reuben. It says, for the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. But woe to him that builded a town with blood, and established a city by iniquity. How did you get America? How did you get South Africa? How did you get the middle, or how did you get the land of Israel? How did you get these lands, man? Okay, like you said, you trying to make an ethnic cleansing to the land of Israel. This is why you overthrowing them Palestinians over there. Dude, you got to go, man. And it says here, behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, because under you is nothing but oppression. But the people should wear themselves for vanity. You know, people losing their mind just to get basic necessities here, man. A fucking breather. But for the earth should be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. But woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth the bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest looking on their nakedness. Yeah, they're philosophies, man. Okay, you polish it up on the pretty picture, and then you watch it destroy them, and then you capitalize off of it. Same thing with patterns of our people. You capitalize off our inventions, and then you come and you say, look at these lazy niggas. It says, thou art filled with shame for glory, and drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. But the cup of the Lord's right hand should be turned to thee, and shameful spirit should be upon thy glory. All right. And this is why the world is looking at you now in a crazy light. OK, because everybody sees it. In fact, get this real quick and I'll end it. You know, the world has had enough of your tyranny, Esau. OK, that's why the scriptures say you should be chased out of the world as a dream. You know, quit the wicked. You're not getting away. All right. Nahum 1 and 3. It says, for Yahweh is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. It says, the Lord have his way in a whirlwind, and in the storm, the clouds are the dust of his feet. All right. And when you go into the word acquit, which we all know what that means, and I'll end it after this. But the word acquit goes into nakwa, which means to be empty, to be clear, to be pure, to be free, to be innocent, to be desolate, to be cut off, to be clean, or purged out. You're not going to be vindicated, or you're not going to be exonerated from the crimes you've committed. Okay, your toll is racking up day by day, and then some. So you getting ready to drink that cup of the Lord's wrath, man. And then some. And then you're going to be put in captivity to serve a brutal punishment. And then you're going to be totally destroyed. So you have nothing good going for you. That's why this nigga's crashing out. Revelation 12:12. But with that, all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Shai. Lord's will you edify. To the next lesson. Shalom.